detail, which we will not, you will see that this Harold Duma model is talking about the relationship between capital and investments and savings. I'm sure you know that people save what they have not used. So for example, you earn a salary every month, and that salary is used to sustain your life. So you budget, and what is left after your daily necessities, what is left is what you save. And what you save is what you invest. So you cannot invest if you don't save. So in economics, savings are equal to investment. Okay? You cannot you cannot invest if you can't save. So for example, your salary is 100,000, and you find yourselves that the total expenditures in a month are equal to let's say 99,000. It means you only have 1,000 which you can use to invest. So in this case, for example, you had an idea to buy more hose, or to buy more axes so that you can open a garden. You need a hoe, you need an axe. It's only what is left from your daily expenditures that you can use to buy a hoe or to buy an axe. So now you have started investing out of that saving you have made that month. Okay? Because you need to survive. So whatever is left is what you can invest. Of course, it's more complicated than that. This is just to explain the model. Because sometimes people invest what they don't even have. They go and borrow, right? Some people go and borrow and buy a tractor. Okay? They go and borrow and buy fertilizers to do farming investment. Some people do that, right? So even though we say that you cannot invest if you don't save, there are exceptions. But for these guys, they linked investment to savings. So you will see that they go on and talk about countries that are developing more than others. So they also have data which shows that countries which have surpluses can save and invest. And those countries which have got more savings and tend to have more investment. Again, it's debatable. It's not always like that. So you guys, when you go and read, you will see that these models are usually prepared using a lot of assumptions, because the idea is that you want to explain something. And for you to explain something and make sense, you need to make assumptions. Some assumptions are so stupid. Some assumptions are so unrealistic, but they still help us to explain something. You need to make them in order to explain something. You remember when we are looking at this, the theory of demand. You know, theories and models are not very different. Okay? So if you try to Google and find out the difference between a theory and a model, you will see that they are not very different. They provide an explanation which can be proved and can be used to predict what is likely to happen. So you make assumptions in order to be able to explain. That's why when we are doing demand theory, supply theory, remember we said everything else constant. We're only dealing with price. With the price demanded, the quantity demanded will increase when prices go down. You remember? Mm-hmm. And we said everything else held constant. Are we really clever? Is it possible to hold all other things constant? No. You cannot just say quantity demanded will increase when prices go down and everything else is succinct. We're only dealing with price. But it helps us explain, right? So it is a theory which is true if indeed all these other things can be held constant. So economic models also, they make a lot of assumptions so that we can explain something. You will see that there are many economic growth models. In your own time, you can apart from Harold Blomer, you can, especially those who continue to do economics, because this is just an introduction. We have just given one example of production function and one example of an economic growth model. But those who want to pursue economics as their study, you will see that we go into more and more models and growth theories. As an introduction, I think I will not go beyond, but there are many economic growth models. One thing that we need to do more about is the issue about how to put costs to production functions. How to deal with costs in production functions. Because remember, this expression does not tell you how much it will cost to produce 10 bags. It just tells you that you can have 4 units of labor, 6 units of capital, whatever. But it doesn't tell you how much it will cost to produce. And you know very well that everybody is concerned about how to choose the best option. And to choose the best option, you need to know the cost. Okay? Yeah. You cannot say, I will choose to produce 10 bags of maize. I will choose 5-4 combination, or I will choose 8-3 combination. Like the example we gave here. Which one is better for you? So there, you need to understand the concept of costs. So there are theories of costs, concepts of costs, which we would like to go into as an introduction to economics. Now, costs of production come in various forms. It comes in various forms. So, if we were to look at factors of production, for example, what do we have as factors of production? What do we have? I sent you some notes on your WhatsApp group. How many have opened some of those? How many of you have opened some of those? Sorry? So nobody has read any of those. There were some slides there I posted on production. Did you read? You didn't. Let us see if we can open some of those. Let us see. Did you find them? Anybody who is tall enough. We discussed those last time, remember? Yeah. Now, some of these factors, when you are producing in your production function, this one here, your production function, the freedom to change them is not always there. The freedom to change some of these factors of production is not always there and then. So for example, if you are talking of land, sometimes it's very difficult to change the amount of land you have. If you go on to capital, for example, physical capital, machines, it's not easy for you to change them the way you want. So if one of the things that you are using for your production function is a building or a machinery, sometimes it's very difficult to change them. overnight. You are stuck with them. So for example, if you are looking at, let's say, in University of Lilongwe, the infrastructure we have, even if tomorrow 1,000 or 2,000 students came, or 1,000,000 students came to join us, we will not be able to change the classrooms immediately. Okay? It's not possible to immediately say, okay, 1,000,000 students have come, they want to study with us, and so we need to have more space. You can change after some time, but not immediately. So some of the cost of production, this is a constraint in the short term. So things such as natural resources or land, for example, if we take land, we take capital, sometimes even technology. Example I give you of how to, the time it takes to develop a new seed, for example, for maize. You don't get new varieties released every 2 months or every 3 months. They take time to develop. Okay? So now that you understand that some of these factors cannot easily be changed, maybe labor, but labor also has a limit. Some countries do not have enough labor, and for them to change that, they may have to maybe call for some labor from another country. I'm sure you heard about these guys who are going to Israel. Okay, some people go to Dubai or other countries where they have actually a shortage of labor. They cannot change it over time. Even if they try, some countries will try to say, okay, families should have more than one child, or families should produce more babies, and they even give some rewards. If you get an extra child, this is what the government will do for you, just to get more labor. Okay? Yeah, so these factors of production, you cannot vary them anyhow, some of them, in the short term. So in the short term, we have what we call fixed costs. So fixed costs of production or fixed inputs, these are inputs that cannot easily be changed in the short period, for example. So fixed inputs will also mean fixed costs. So the cost of production, one single item that comes to mind is fixed costs. Fixed costs resulting from fixed items in the production function. So you have fixed cost. So if we had costs here, fixed cost means that regardless of whether you are producing or not. In a business, there are some costs that are there regardless of whether you are producing anything or not. Okay? So, for example, let's take an example of no, not maybe not saying, not renting a, yeah, you can say that. So for example, you have negotiated to use somebody's farm. Okay, this farm is, let's say, 100 acres. So you have negotiated that you want to sublease this farm for 10 years. So there will be a fixed amount of money that you'll be paying every year. It doesn't matter whether you are using all the 100 acres or you are using half of it, or you are not using any of it, you will be still paying a fixed amount for that land. Okay? So if let's say it is 1 million that you are paying, whether you are producing zero amount of crops, you will still be paying 1 million for that land. So this cost of renting the land is just a straight line, regardless of what production. You have that fixed cost. It doesn't matter what production, whatever function you use, whether you want to use whatever of the other inputs. But in terms of the cost for land, that one is fixed. Doesn't depend on the quantity of bags that you want to produce. So this is a fixed factor, not a variable factor. In that case, it has become a fixed input into your production. Land. And this land is rented at a fixed amount. It's not depending on the number of bags that you are producing. Okay? But you can also have, in your production function, you can also have costs that you can change. You can have inputs that you can change. So those inputs that you can change will mean that your costs can also be changed for those particular kind of inputs. Now, here we are assuming that we have land now is fixed. You can see the example I've given, that land is fixed as your factor of production. It has been fixed. But there are other variables now which you can change. There are other inputs now you can change. Now you want to decide how many bags you want to produce. You have the land at a fixed cost. Now you want to see how many bags you want to decide what production combination you will use to produce the number of bags that you want, using the other variable inputs. So now you think about labor, for example. So the more labor you use on that land, the more of your land will be cultivated and the more of your of maize you can produce. So you now change the labor. Okay, so you say, okay, I have this fixed amount of land, I want to have 10 laborers. Or no, I want to have 20 laborers. Or no, I want to have 100. So these variable costs will now change based on the amount of output that you want. So the variable cost now, for example, in this case, if you are not producing, if you decide not to produce anything, you will not employ anybody. So your variable cost will be 0, right? You don't want to produce anything. That year you just want to stay put. And yet you are paying for the land. The fixed cost is there. But in terms of production, you can decide to produce at 0 and you have 0 variable cost. You will not employ anybody. You will not buy any fertilizer. All other raw materials you will not be buying. But the moment you want to be producing some maize, now you have to make sure you have labor, you have fertilizer, and the more output you want, the more labor you will employ. If you want 10 bags, you definitely you need less people. If you want to be producing 100 bags, definitely you will want more people. So too with the requirement for fertilizers. So now you have variable costs that will depend on the output you want, right? These variable inputs, the inputs that you can change, now will be related to the amount of output that you want. So in your production function now, we are dealing with varying your variable costs to vary your output. The techniques are there. The specifications are there. Now you make a decision. Okay? So variable inputs will increase as your plan for a higher output comes into play. Okay? So you will see that now, remember, this is about, these costs are related to your inputs, right? We are trying to transit from production to costs. That's why that's why I've been putting these things up there. The inputs that are fixed and then the inputs that can vary. This will also has implications on your costs. Okay? Yeah. There are some inputs that are fixed and therefore costs will be fixed. There are inputs that you can vary and therefore costs can be varied. So you can also have variable costs. So fixed costs related to fixed inputs. Okay? Variable costs relates to variable inputs. We are transitioning from production, understanding production functions, into understanding the actual process of production now with costs. So you can see now that because you have some factors which are fixed, your total costs now will be your total costs of production will be equal to what? Fixed cost plus variable costs, right? So, because fixed costs do not care whether you are producing anything or not. Even when you are producing 0, you have, so if you are producing 0, you have no variable costs, but you have just fixed costs, right? So, if you are producing 0, your costs are still equal to your total cost will be equal to fixed costs. So for example, if this total cost of production, if you have no production, it means this one is zero, right? So when you are not producing anything, your total costs are equal to fixed costs, right? Are we together? Yes. So it means your graph now will start not here, not down here. It will start there, right? Your fixed cost graph is just flat like that. It doesn't care how much you are producing because down here is the quantity. The y-axis here is the quantity, is measured as quantity. Okay? Fixed costs don't care whether you're producing anything or not. But variable costs only increase when you are increasing your production. So variable costs increase when you are increasing production, which means they increase when you increase. So it will be something like that. Okay? They will increase as you increase production. But it will start there. Something like that. Now, this is in the short term. As time passes, you can change things. You can change the behavior of your fixed costs, but not immediately. So we have this concept of short run and long run. So short run usually is within a year. So you will always have differences between now and later. You remember the production function is talks about the technique of producing. What combinations of inputs you will need to produce 10 bags, for example. The one example that I've been using. In the short run, you cannot change that technical relationship. But in the long run, you can. So for example, technology can change. The example I gave you, that you can develop a new seed, which can, using the same land, you can produce more on the same land, just because you are using a better seed. In the long run, you can change things. In the long run, you can change the specification of your machinery. So maybe your business is to produce soya pieces. You grow soy, and then instead of selling the soy, you process it and make soya pieces. So in the short run, the machine you have can only produce, let's say 100 bags a day. It's fixed. That machine is fixed, 100 bags a day. Until you acquire another machine later on, which can produce maybe 200 bags a day. So in the short run, things can be difficult to change, but in the long run, you can change them. You can operate at a different level of productivity. What do we mean by productivity? This word productivity, what does it mean? What do you understand by productivity? Maximum level No.
The capability of a business or organization to produce, which is to produce the.
I know somebody is gonna Google. Masiku ano. I'm sure a student somewhere is trying to Google. What does productivity mean? Productivity basically, I'm just in my head, Sikuri uzani what some people have written. But my understanding is that productivity means producing the highest output with the least inputs. Okay? Highest input using the least. That's what productivity should be. So you are using very little. So for example, somebody is using 10 people to produce 10 bags. Another person is using only 2 people to produce 10 bags. So let's say somebody is, so the most productive technique, for example, let's say somebody is using 2 bags of maize, of people, two, 2 people, and 2 bags of fertilizer to produce 10 bags of maize. Somebody is using 4 people, 4 bags of fertilizer. Another person is using 6. So we will see who is more efficient and who is more productive. So I think you are the most efficient is the person who is using very few inputs to produce those 10 bags. So the one who is more productive is the one who is using very few. So it's either very few inputs or very little effort. So one machine might use very little effort, or maybe if we were to use in terms of how much fuel they use. So one machine might be that it's producing per hour, it's producing 10 bags and using 2 liters of fuel. Another machine is doing it in the same hour, but using 4 liters. So look at those scenarios to see. You can also have examples. It's not only me who's thinking here. You are the young ones who are your brains are far much faster and better than me. So you can use some of those examples. It's about efficiency, and when we say efficiency, is that you are using very little thing, or very little, whether it's time or whether it is an input, whether it is whatever, to produce something. You are using very little. So that's also what the definition of efficiency also is about that. The definition of productivity is also about that. Okay? That's why the Harold Duma model is talking about capital investment and the productivity of that capital. So we're talking about efficiencies as well. Productivity and efficiency. So we have a concept of fixed costs and variable costs. Okay? Now, what is total cost? Total cost is equal to fixed costs plus variable costs. From here, we can start calculating a number of things. We can start deriving a number of things. What if we take this one to the left? This one. So variable cost now will be equal to total cost minus fixed costs. In the same way, if we want to calculate fixed costs will be equal to what? Fixed costs will be equal to total cost minus variable costs. So now you can start looking at your head now will be boiling up. If you start with one, can you calculate the other? Yes. If you are given some numbers, can you calculate the other? Yes. You can. Now, can we calculate average costs? Average total costs. So, can we calculate average total cost will be equal to what? Average total cost. What do we need to find an average? Average is cost. No. I have introduced a different thing now. Averages. By adding all fixed cost and variable cost. You can, because, sorry? Yeah. Yes. Good. Excellent. You have to divide this by output, right? You have to divide total costs with Q, because we're talking of average. Output. The idea of having this, we are now transiting into finding unit costs. Okay? That's why we are doing this. You can also find average variable cost, right? Okay? You can also find that, which will be variable costs divided by quantity. You can also find average fixed cost. Okay? which will be equal to fixed cost divided by Q. Now, now, these, you can now start plotting them here. Remember, the average variable cost was starting from here. We said it was like that, this variable cost curve, which we plotted from, because variable costs are zero when you are not producing anything, but they increase as you continue to produce more, right? That's what we say. Now, when you start looking at averages, it becomes a problem for some of them. When you are not producing anything, do you have an average total cost?
Yes.
What is total cost? What is total cost? Total cost is fixed cost plus variable cost. Okay? Now, when quantity is zero, you don't have this, right? You don't have that. So, when quantity is zero, can you have average total cost? When you are not producing anything, total costs are equal to fixed costs. You never have zero cost. Okay? That's what we said. You never have a situation where you have zero costs. Huh? Somebody is saying no. That's all. What we have said is that when you have some fixed inputs, these things do not care whether you are producing anything or not. So the example I gave you, that we have land that we are not using, but we have rented it, and that rental doesn't depend on production. That's what we said, right? So it means that whether we are producing or not, we have a cost. So the total cost when we are not producing anything is actually exactly equal to fixed cost, right? Yeah. So in that case, do we have an average cost?
Because they don't have coaching. So the average cost is and to find the average, we need to add up fixed and variable cost. To find out the average, which is total cost.
Think. Formula papa tuuchiza divided by jani. So in the case, this one, ATC is equal to TC divided by Q, which is the same as FC plus VC divided by Q. Okay? because TC is this plus this, right? So if we substitute that formula on top there, it becomes FC plus VC divided by quantity. Now, how can you simplify that? This thing FC plus VC divided by Q. How can you write this in another way? Mizwanya ya masamu utapangani. Huh? Oh, you mean you multiply by both sides by Q?
Or just do this. FC over Q plus VC over Q.
Would that be the same, eh?
Yes.
So you have FC over Q
Plus VC
plus
VC over Q.
VC over Q like this. Can you do that? Is it mathematically allowed to do that? Now, to be honest with you, you can't do this. You can. And what it means, for example, when you are not producing anything, your variable cost will be zero, right? Yes. Okay? So this particular one, what will it become? Zero divided by something. What do you get? You get zero. So your average total cost will just be FC divided by Q. But Q is zero.
Zero.
Yes. Because we have zero here, zero here. So what will you get? Zero. So there will be no total variable costs. It will be 0. Right? When you are not producing anything. But you still have costs, right?
Yes.
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 You have fixed costs. But because we are talking of average, okay? The trick here is average. You cannot have an average of nothing. The concept of an average is when you have items that you can add and divide, right? But when you don't have items, you cannot have an average. Okay? So the same thing here is, for example, if you wanted to calculate the unit cost, but because you have no units, you cannot have a unit cost. Okay? You cannot have the cost per bag. Even though you have fixed costs, because those are always there, even though you have fixed costs, but you cannot have a unit cost of maize, of bag of maize, because you are not producing anything. Okay? So that becomes just a cost of the business. It just becomes cost of existence. It's not cost of production in that case, because you are not producing anything. So sometimes it's nice to ignite some thinking, some brains to start boiling up, and sometimes they boil up for nothing, which is very nice. You know, sometimes you start thinking mpaka muntu mati uyusapenga, because you are thinking and thinking, what you are thinking about is actually nothing. Okay? But it's nice to do that. Now, if you have noticed, I have been trying to move this theory of production. I've been trying to move it together with theory of cost. Okay? In order to make sure that we don't come back to introducing the theory of cost on its own. Okay? That's what I've been trying to do here. Now, we can continue to pursue the various concepts of production for now. Okay? So I'll leave you with an assignment. It's not for you to write, don't complain. It's just for you to go and read. Okay? I'm not trying to say you go and submit an assignment. You already have an assignment. Sorry, talimba data. Body 9/8. Okay, so I wanted you to go and start looking at concepts such as constant returns to scale, increasing returns to scale, diminishing returns to scale, marginal productivity. Sorry? Oh, pangono. No, what? Just these concepts. Decreasing returns, increasing returns, decreasing returns, increasing returns. What do we mean? Okay. Look at those concepts: increasing, decreasing returns, meaning constant. So, for example, when you increase your inputs, what do you get? Okay, there are laws of diminishing returns, laws of increasing returns. You know, go and read some of those concepts on productions. Mugaberenge, just read. Okay? You don't have to produce a report to me, but go and read. This is an reading assignment. It's just yeah, you can even do more if you want to. Kodi class rep iwe mda. I think we should meet. Ndikupase another book which you can read. So what I wanted you to read is these things, huh? Not diminishing marginal product. We are talking about diminishing returns, okay? Increasing returns. That's what I want us to. You have to read more than just not just the notes that I gave you. These notes, you need to go into your books. You need to go into your books, not what I have summarized there. You need to go into your books and read about these marginal decreasing returns to scale, increasing returns to scale. You know, go and read about those concepts. And if you see on the course outline, I'm not following the way the course outline is written. Okay? Because I'm your lecturer. I know how best to deliver what is there. Okay? So you will not, if you check on your course outline, you will see kuti zina tachitakava za kusogoro, zina za kumbuyo chonchi. Yeah? But you will see kuti by the end of, excuse me, sir, you will see that by the end of the course, we will have covered more than what the course line says. Okay? But we are not following like the way they have put. So, for example, economic systems, it's covered. Because it's to me, it's something not very important. Even though it's appearing as it's not very important. Aguru, excuse me. Once you have finished reading, you should always have these review questions. Okay? So, for example, if you cannot answer any of these questions there, it means you are not even prepared to write an exam on that topic. On the topic of production functions and the like, we have spent 2 days, 2 sessions, last week and this week, on production functions, and we have not yet finished. Next week we'll continue. Okay? But what I am trying to urge you is that when you are not able to answer some of these review questions, it means you are not ready. It means this topic has not been understood. But if you are able to answer these things, we know, it means you have understood. So sometimes you should test yourself. If you get stuck on one of those questions, go back and check, read, so that you know on this topic my knowledge is clear. So this is for self-checking your knowledge about this particular topic. Okay? It's very important. Next week, very important. Next week, Friday, we may or we may not meet because there's a meeting organized by Che, which I need to attend because I'm also responsible for research and quality assurance. So there's a meeting on a Friday. So maybe either, I don't know what days of the week are you having no classes? Okay, so anyway, I will use the guys who make timetables to find me a time to do the class here Friday, either earlier or after Friday. So it means ngati sitting a present how yokumana anytime next week, ndiye kuti the other week tizakumana kawiri. Tizakumana ka Friday komweko, and then another day, time yoti angadi pass and hopanga ma timetable, because they know when you are not having a class. So akaturusa nthawi yonse mungakaneso because they know. Yeah, you wanted what?
Be added on the group.